We're back at it with another UFC main event preview. This time I am joined by Mando Gutierrez, pro MMA fighter, and he's had the chance to work with Kai Asakura ahead of his championship fight against Pantoja at UFC 307. We're here to discuss said matchup that takes place on December 7th. Again, Mando, how's everything going, bro?
It's going good, bro. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Everything's all right here. Just enjoying the MMA and getting ready for the cold weather here. I don't know where you are right now, but it's gonna get pretty cold for us soon here.
Yeah, Michigan. It's getting nice and cold up. That's up this way too, bro.
Good, good, good. So let me ask you this, right? Let's start here. I think a big reason I wanted to get you on and what makes this a bit different from all the other ones is normally when we talk about two guys in a main event like this, you know how UFC fans are, right? They could be a bit casual at times. Usually you have a good understanding of both fighters. We've seen them fight other contenders in the UFC. This time I think it's very interesting because we got a guy that's fairly unfamiliar given the fact that he's making his UFC debut and it's a championship fight. And I should preface by saying he's unfamiliar maybe to UFC fans, a lot of them, not to MMA fans overall, right? Because he was the Rising World Champion. But let me ask you this, right? For anyone that, doesn't know much about the guy, I mean, what kind of fighter is he, would you say, if you could just sum it up in a few lines?
Lightning in a bottle, bro. That's like he has true finishing capabilities, super strong, super agile, fast as fuck. And he cracks, man. If there's one thing I can guarantee you is that's the hardest hitting 125er on planet Earth, and I really believe it. Timing, precision, speed, power, all mixed into one, just makes him the hardest fucking puncher there is.
So as far as your connection to him, were you in camp with him, helping him out for this fight or what?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just came together because his coach, Billy Bigelow, he came up underneath Gray Maynard, and so did I. So I learned Gray Maynard, and so did he. And if Gray Maynard was handing out belts, I feel like me and Billy are the two black belts. We're the only two black belts that he's ever produced. So I feel like that's where the connection came from. And when they found out about the matchup and about that this was going to be the fight, they called me right away because that's a really similar style to what I got going on. And the connection was already there because of Gray, regardless. So they had me come through, and I went out to Thailand with them. They paid all on their ticket. So I was in Thailand with them for a month, and then in Japan with them for a month. I got the fight out there. So we've been putting some good work in, man. They got a good thing going over there. So it's been cool. It's been a cool connection to have between him and I.
Okay, so that's where the connection started. I'm glad I got to figure that out. What was your main area of focus with him? Was there anything you were preparing for, like specifically any areas, or was it just a general thing?
On my end,
Yep, on your end.
I was really taking advantage of the fact that I had a true seasoned striker that's knocked out like everybody he's ever been in the cage with. He's finished everybody. Like all of his biggest wins are all by knockout. Like he finished Juan Archuleta, finished Hiruchi, finished Manel Cape. No, he didn't. But
You beat him though.
Manel Cape. He's beating real serious guys. So it's just cool to learn from somebody like that, and just a different look, something that I'm not used to. So it was really cool for me to go out there and sharpen my sword with a guy like that, especially considering the fact that he's relatively unknown to people in the U.S. Not a lot of people have moved around with him.
Sure.
So it's just cool to learn from somebody completely new that's like that you've never seen before, never really known much about him other than watching his fights.
So it's safe to say that maybe you weren't incredibly knowledgeable of him either, right? Because again, there's a lot of people that may not know much about him. So it's fair to say that maybe you weren't as knowledgeable. I know you guys had the connection, right? But again, when a guy's not fighting in America, it's kind of hard to keep, how many MMA promotions are there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I knew of him, obviously, like anyone that's been a multiple time champion and risen, and he's beating guys like
when he beat Horiguchi, I definitely knew about him. I was like, okay, who is this guy?
For me, it was Archuleta because I always thought of Archuleta as being like a crazy representative of like United States MMA, and him going out.
Great fighter.
Yeah, him being in Bellator and being in a tear for so long and having such a crazy win streak, and then going out to Risen and beating the shit out of everybody, and then all of a sudden he loses. I'm like, wait, whoa, and then I had to watch,
Right.
And then I come to find out everything that went on during that fight, I like the fact that there was a 20-pound difference on fight night. The fact that he blew weight by like 6 pounds, and the fight shouldn't even have happened in the first place, and he still got finished. So I was like, damn. And then I really did some digging, watching all the shit, and I knew about that like well before he signed with the UFC. But then when like it all kind of just came out of nowhere, it just came up quick. My fight got canceled, and then they slid up in my DMs like 2 days later, like, hey man, sorry about your fight, but shit, we got this offer for you if you want to do it. I was like, well, shit, there ain't nothing left to do, might as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I definitely knew about him. I definitely did. I try to stay in touch with everything that's going on in my weight class all over the world.
Nothing too specific to reveal, but have how has he looked behind the scenes ahead of this fight? Is he looking pretty sharp?
Savage. The energy is that, like, I didn't have to be there for all his old camps to know that this camp is bringing something special out of him, just because of the energy around him, the people that are around him and their reactions to things that he's doing and things that he's learning and things that he's working and pulling out during sparring and stuff like that. He's special, man. He's tough. He's good. And that's where my money is on that day for sure. And that's completely unbiased. I truly just think so. I think stylistically, he's a nightmare for Pantoja, and it's going to be a tough night.
You mentioned the weight in the Archuleta fight, and it wasn't against Asakura. It was an Archuleta problem, right? But it's interesting, right? Because we're talking about a guy who, and this is a legit question, he's going into his UFC debut, a title fight, and he's going to be fighting at 125 pounds. I don't think he's ever weighed in at 125 pounds. I think once he weighed in at like 127. I think even when he did have that fight, I think it was like 127. So I'm not denying he can't. I mean, he's a legit martial artist. I'm sure he'll be fine. But what you saw when you were over there in his camp, was there any emphasis at all on like the diet, on the weight? Like, were they keeping tabs on that early? Because I would think if it's his first 125 fight, at least in a while, and it's a UFC debut title fight, I would think that's something you do not want to mess up, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, to get to this level, regardless if it's UFC or not, if you're a world championship caliber, no matter what, it's going to be no stone unturned for everything. So he's already rocking with one of the best nutritionists in the game, and doing all the right shit. So now the only thing that he had to worry about was actually being able to get down to the weight. But that's not a problem at all. I've seen what his numbers are looking like. He's good. Everything's smooth. And I'm surprised that the physical condition that he's in. Like, he's been super disciplined and the work shows, So I'm excited to see what he puts out there on fight night.
And not to make this all about Kai, but again, I think since there's so much unknown about him compared to Pantoja, I think it's an interesting discussion. One thing that really does stand out about this matchup, again, and I did bring this up, is the fact that Asakura is about to fight for a UFC world title in his debut fight with the promotion. I believe that's only happened like once or twice before, maybe. I mean, what did the UFC see in this guy to throw him right into that fight? And do you think it makes sense for something like that to happen?
I mean, the biggest thing is obviously the superstar factor, man. Out there, he's hot shit, man. He's hot shit out that way on that side of the world, and it's gonna be dope for him to bring something special to the division. And also, I think he brings a newfound like breath of fresh air to the division too. Nobody's trying. I mean, with all due respect to everybody else, Pantoja's beat everybody multiple times. I mean, it's good to see new blood in there, and it's good to see a real threat come in and be a immediate factor. So I think that has to play a big role, and obviously his resume speaks for itself too. So he goes out there, he's super entertaining, nobody can deny that, and he's very well deserving. People are always like, Pantoja said it himself, everyone's always talking about, oh, the UFC needs to do a crossover, the UFC needs to do this, that, and the other, but they're not receptive of a fight like this, which makes no sense to me, because that's literally what people are asking for, and this is as close as you can get to a crossover fight for the UFC.
Yeah,
they got
essentially the rising champion versus the UFC champ, right?
They have their pretty dominant champion out there in Japan stepping into U.S. soil and coming out here to take on their champion. I think it couldn't line up better. I think it's a really cool storyline, and it's gonna bring a lot of eyeballs for sure, especially a lot of international eyeballs, which is a big deal as well. It sells.
So a guy like that, so dominant in Japan, right? Why does he come to the States? Is it just what I think it is? Like, he wants to take on the biggest stage, UFC, and conquer that world?
What's left to do,
Sure.
I mean,
two-time champion, right, and rising?
Yeah. I mean, he's fought everybody out there. He's been a superstar out there for so long. I'm pretty sure. I mean, to be a fighter, you got to be motivated. There has to be a motivation behind it. What's your why? And I feel
Right.
like his why is wanting to be the best in the world. I mean, he's beat all the guys there, and he wants to show the world that he really is the best in the world. Simple as that.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point. Looking at the matchup through the fighter's eyes, right? Through your eyes, when you see someone like Pantoja, what do you think are some of the things he does really well? Obviously, the pressure, the wrestling, the control time, but is there anything specific that you think is a bit, is sort of undeniable about him that's so hard to stop, and it's why he's a champion? Is there anything to him that makes him, why is he the champ, right? Obviously, he's good. So what plays into that?
Um, I feel like a lot of it has to do with his tenaciousness and his mindset. As far as even when he seems like his gas tank is on empty, he can always just keep it going on autopilot. And to be a real true fighter, you need to be able to fight through adversity like that. And I mean, he's proven it time and time again. There's a lot
He
of times
has.
where he's been hurt. There's been a lot of times where he's been gassed out. There's been
Absolutely.
times where he got tired of beating somebody's ass. Even I've seen that happen. I've seen him literally get tired of beating somebody's ass, but then he has to just dig deep and finish the fight, and he does it. So he's super tenacious. He's super tough. He's very good at what he does, and he's good at dictating where the fight takes place. So, no matter what, I mean, it's a tough fight, but like I said, Kai all the way for sure in my eyes.
I see Pantoja, you see someone, he doesn't really get much respect or attention in the eyes of the fans. I think a lot of that might have to do with the fighting style. Maybe it's not the most, I'm not saying it's not the most fan friendly, but what I want to say is, you know how UFC fans are, right? They
Yeah.
start booing the second, just the last event at MSG, you see a little bit of grappling and they start booing. Do you think it's some of that, or you think maybe it's the flyweight division, or why do you think people aren't really giving this guy the respect he deserves?
Um, let's be real, bro. Unfortunately, sometimes it comes down to very dumbass reasons, and in my opinion, I think it's because he doesn't speak English.
That's a
Simple
valid
as that.
reason. I thought about that before.
Super simple as that. I think that's the only reason why. I feel like if you understood him, like he actually does have a crazy story, and
He does.
if he was able to talk about his story in English, his fan base would be a lot different. So I feel like that definitely plays a role. And as far as the fights go, I feel like his fights are super entertaining, regardless of his style. I find them to be really entertaining, and I think I don't know. I don't see any other reason why.
He's had some fun fights, so I'm right there with you, and I've definitely seen that before. That's why sometimes I look at Alex Pereira and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I just think people sense the aura on this guy and they're like, oh, he's legit.
But it's also, I mean, Pantoja hangs around and fights significantly more than Pereira does. Pereira goes
Yeah,
out there and puts an exclamation point on everything. Uh, there
bingo.
have been a couple of questionable calls when it comes to Pantoja and things like that. So maybe people want to see a slightly more dominant champion, or at least someone that's like clear cut champ. But also the race at 125 is so close that even though he's beat these guys multiple times, it's they're the best guys in the world. It's not easy to beat the same guy three times.
There's a few split decisions in there that he won on the way to get to the belt. So absolutely. And I do agree with you on the Brazilian thing that if you just put an exclamation point on it, I guess it doesn't matter. Because look at Oliveira too, right? That guy doesn't speak a lick of English. He's just finishing everyone and everyone loves him. So
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Yeah. Looking at Asakura, what are some of the things that he does really well, do you think? For the uninformed fan, like what does he bring to the table in the cage? What are his strengths?
Um, he'll throw anything and everything at you. He's super in
The
your face.
creativity stood out to me.
Yeah,
Is that sort of
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
implying?
The creativity, the
Right.
unpredictability, the speed, the timing, the power. He's just the perfect package on the feet, man. I think he really is a truly. I think he's gonna come in, and people are gonna be very surprised at the fact that he's gonna come in and automatically be uh, like top five striker in the UFC automatically. Uh, he mixes it up really well. He does everything really tough and really well. So I'm really excited to see the fans' reception of him, and especially after he wins this belt, I think it's going to be a big deal.
So I have looked into this fight, done the research. I've heard the opinions of other people. And look, I mean, Pantoja's like a minus two something favorite. I don't know who's going to win the fight, but I'm saying Pantoja's like a minus two something favorite, right? I've heard from more than one person saying, how's Asakura going to deal with the wrestling? How's he going to deal, marching backwards, right? We know how he thrives going forward. How will he do marching backwards? How's he going to deal with a grappler? Has he ever been in there with a guy that's going to take him down like that? What do you say to that?
I mean, if anything, like I hear a lot of stuff like this all the time, and I tell people, in Risen, you're fighting in a ring, which if anything, it makes it harder to wrestle. You know what I'm saying? It makes it
Sure.
for the guy that's for the guy that's defending, you have nothing to hold you up. You know, so as a wrestler, if you're fighting a true grappler that knows how to wrestle, you're going to be able to wrestle open mat anywhere in the ring, even if you're against the ropes. So it makes it a lot harder to defend shots. And even out there, you don't see him on his back too much. You know, he has great takedown defense. He has good footwork. It's going to be as easy as people think, especially in those big cages. It makes a big difference, you know. So I think I'm not too much concerned with it. You know, at the end of the day, it's a fight. Anything can happen, but he's more than prepared. You know, he's proved it time and time again. Every time, I mean, Pantoja is not the first guy that's gone out there with the game plan to take him down. You know what I'm saying? You watch Kai Asakura fight for 10 seconds, and you're automatically gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this guy down. That's what everybody wants to do. You don't want to get punched in the face by that guy. So a lot of people have had that game plan, and a lot of people have failed. So I have a feeling this will be no different.
You think it's valid though that people bring that up? Like, you think it's fair?
I mean, it's always valid. You know, people are always gonna like. This is all in the eyes of the fans. You know, no matter what, they're gonna be able to say whatever they want to say or assume whatever they want to assume.
Sure.
But I mean, it's always going to be a factor. It's a factor no matter what. I mean, he's fighting in a cage. That's different, you know, things like that. But at the end of the day, a fight's a fight. And he's done this time and time again. And this will be no different. You know, at the end of the day, he still has to go out there and fight. But every fight starts on the feet. So, you know, you clearly know what Pantoja's mission is. But you also know what Kai's there for. So, I mean, it's one of those fights where you're just waiting to see who strikes first and who bites first.
So Pantoja's a guy that definitely likes to march forward at times, but he's also a bit of a calculated striker, right? He knows it's not his strength, and he doesn't go out there and take a lot of chances. I've seen Asakura take some chances, but in a good way. Like, he likes to put it all out there. Do you think those two clashes on the feet, that could lead to something crazy happening?
Oh, definitely. I mean, this fight's going to be fireworks either way. You know, you got one guy that's more of a clean cut precision striker and one guy that's more just of a tenacious, just in your face, like backyard brawler kind of deal.
Yeah.
And you never, I mean, most of the time you don't really know what a guy like that's going to come out and do. So, you know, that always makes things interesting, but that's what it's all about. You know, Kai's good at solving puzzles on the feet. So it'll be a cool one to watch. I'm excited to see him perform.
Any final predictions on the fight?
Kai knockout. Simple as that.
Okay. So you got the finish on that. But it looks like for today, that's going to do it. I appreciate the time, guys. Be sure to check out UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura for the flyweight title on December 7th. And yeah, again, Mando, thanks for joining us.